the good, bad, and ugly when it comes to school. Let's go back and see some of the challenges that we were facing because we didn't know that we were autistic.
One specific time when I told my mother, she was like, "Oh, तुम्हें बस maths नहीं करना है इसलिए तुम बहाने बना रही हो."
Teachers have a tendency to single out a particular student who is not meeting the expectations that they think every student is supposed to meet.
If I'm not meeting your expectations, that doesn't mean that मेरे को करना ही नहीं है. You can clearly see me trying. Maybe I'm struggling somewhere.
Hi, I'm Shayuni. I'm a late diagnosed autistic woman from India, and I'm here to share my experiences and insights of living a life most of the time undiagnosed and finally getting a diagnosis and discovering a new me.
Hi, I'm Devrupa. I spent my teenage years struggling with mental health. Went to a lot of therapists, psychiatrists. Nothing changed until I was diagnosed with autism around the time I was 30, which allowed me to experience life differently and be kind to myself in a way I never had been before.
Tell me that one subject in school that felt like Lord Voldemort has come in front of you and is just going to, you know, Avada Kedavra right now.
I think physics, numericals, and also maths that felt like I have dementors surrounding me, slowly sucking out my soul.
Okay. I think this is a good point to see like the good, bad, and ugly when it comes to school. Although, actually, good, there are no memories per se. It's mostly bad and ugly.
I agree.
But let's go back and see some of the challenges that we were facing because we didn't know that we were autistic. Autism is a neurodevelopmental condition. ये एक बहुत बड़ा मिथ है कि बस बच्चे ऑटिस्टिक हो सकते हैं और अडल्ट्स में ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता. But that's not true. A person is born autistic and they stay that way throughout their life. It's a lifelong condition. It doesn't go away just because you you become an adult. So it is possible that you may grow up as an undiagnosed autistic person, and as an adult you get diagnosed, but the condition presents itself right from when you were a kid. So let's revisit our school days and see what sort of hurdles we faced and what could have been done better because we were undiagnosed at that point. Um, because whenever you think of school days, mostly people attach it with a lot of nostalgia and they have such fond memories. They really want to go back to those school days, which is not really the case with me. I have some fond memories, but certain things they just stand out, and I wish somebody had got them early on. So, I'll start with this subject that I feared so much, maths. I was just not bad at it. It's just like it made no sense to me because I believe that in order to solve any problem, you need to be able to create a mental map and then apply the formula and then arrive at the answer. I think I inherently lacked that ability. It just never happened. Nothing ever showed up in my brain. And there were no visual aids or other aids like calculators allowed, which I think also made it really difficult. And I never had the working memory to retain certain amount of information like the formula, like the problem, and then go ahead and solve it. So it was always like, I don't know, I was just fighting this demon without any help, any support, and it just went on like that. So does this resonate with you?
It really does. Um, especially when you also mentioned the nostalgia, like I see people around me feeling nostalgic about school, and that makes me want to go back and redo school. In fact, I've sort of like expressed this desire, and like my friends have laughed. But I also really relate on the math aspect. Um, that is a subject I really struggled with. In fact, my scores across subjects in school were very inconsistent. I used to do really well in the language subjects like English, Hindi, computer, but when it came to maths, I wasn't doing really well. And also physics numericals, and especially in 11th and 12th grade when vectors came in, like I really struggled to perceive things beyond like two dimensions. And
Mm.
I mean, I understand what is happening now because when I try to navigate, I cannot for the life of me read a map. But then I didn't know, and nobody also knew how to help me, which also meant that I would have to take extra tuition classes. And because it's maths, mostly the teachers used to be men because there aren't too many women in STEM in India. And I also got sexually harassed a couple of times. And I remember one specific time when I told my mother, she was like, "Oh, तुम्हें बस maths नहीं करना है इसलिए तुम बहाने बना रही हो." And to some extent, I also used to blame myself like, "Oh, if I wasn't so bad at this subject, maybe I wouldn't have had to face this." So, it just like the impact of not doing well in maths was just so deep in my life.
Do you know schools now allow students to use calculators, even have scribes and assisted writers in order to kind of, get through these challenges?
Oh, wow.
And I so wish that this existed when I was in school, but better late than never. I just hope that this remains the norm everywhere. It doesn't come across as an exception, but just becomes part of the system. And the other thing that I was thinking is that teachers have a tendency to single out a particular student who is not meeting the expectations that they think every student is supposed to meet, which is very, very counterproductive. It doesn't help anyone, it doesn't help the student. I think it doesn't even help the teacher, because I don't think that even the teachers know why these expectations exist or who are they catering to. And because they are all just thinking in that same framework, they are not even getting the chance to see that this particular student may have a different potential. There is something else that is there to be explored. And the root is it all comes back to this not singling a person out and saying that, see, you are not able to do this, or what you do is not good, or it is not up to the mark. Rather, if you see differences, maybe it's time for a open and honest conversation. The shaming element doesn't really help anyone, I feel.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I also think it's because that is the only blueprint they have, right? Like those are the kind of teachers that they have grown
Yeah.
up around. And like you said, it's very counterproductive. To give you an example, there are two different art teachers I had. One was so understanding, so empathetic. She would never shame you in public for, if she thinks you didn't meet her expectations. And she was an art teacher, right? She didn't expect everyone to do art the same way. Uh, and then had to start going to another art teacher. And I left his class in like less than 6 months, and with the other teacher I had worked for, I don't know, like 8 years. It's because this guy just had an idea of what art is, and either everybody performs and makes art the exact same way, or you're not doing a great job. And like it doesn't help anybody, right? And like a little bit of empathy would probably have gone a long way there in understanding how I want to approach art. uh but even otherwise, what I think teachers often tend to do is they assume the worst in people.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, if I'm not meeting your expectations, that doesn't mean that मेरे को करना ही नहीं है.
Hmm.
That means, okay, you can clearly see me trying. Maybe I'm struggling somewhere. Maybe you help me, or maybe you rewire your expectations. Like, there's just so much that can be done. And I understand why the previous generation of teachers probably were the way they were, because again, there's lack of like a blueprint. But I really hope that the newer generation of teachers are able to set better examples that can allow people to have those blueprints to really approach things differently and empathetically.
And finally, nothing is set in stone, right?
Yeah.
You can change and adapt with the times, with the needs of your student. Just because the previous batch did it one way doesn't mean every batch henceforth has to do it the same way. So just keeping in sync with those changing needs is just the best way to go ahead.
Yeah, and not just staying in sync with those needs, but also, I mean, you're a teacher, right? Like you are leading a generation of people, and it's also important to sensitize everybody else to behave the same way, to act with empathy. And when you shame a student, like that is what the student is internalizing, and everybody else also thinks it's okay to
It's
do
okay.
that.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we just, I mean, it's probably like a lot of pressure to put on just teachers, but as a society, we need to change, and teachers play a pivotal part there.
Now that you bring up the issue about teachers, it really like hits home because I had a private tuition teacher who was appointed especially to ensure that I was getting acceptable marks in maths, because just like you, I was doing extremely well in all other subjects, but when it came to maths, no one knew what was going on. Anyway, this teacher just kept, in order to push the blame on me, ही वुड टेल माय पेरेंट्स दैट वो नाटक कर रही है। आप उससे ज़्यादा एक्सपेक्ट कर नहीं रहे हैं, इसलिए वो उसका एडवांटेज ले रही है। सो ही वुड बी लाइक, यू आर जस्ट प्रिटेंडिंग टू नॉट understand it, and that always confused me because I was like, if I really understood it, why would I not just go ahead and get good grades? But yeah, I mean, and you know with teachers, what immediately the other hurdle that comes to my mind is all the all the teachers back in school used to give me such vague advice to you know to kind of go ahead and progress in life. And they would tell my parents that she if she only realizes her potential, she'll be fantastic. लेकिन कभी समझ ही में नहीं आया कि उसका मतलब क्या है, बिकॉज आई टेक थिंग्स लिटरली. So I always got confused that what is it that you want me to do? Potential in what way do I, and what do I do in order to achieve it? I think there was just no guidance. They would keep saying very vague things that made no sense to me. Some of the teachers even brought out this point that I was bad in math. So they would be like, just focus. Just try harder. And that completely, it just never struck with me. And now after all these years at this age, do these things occur to me, and I'm like, if only somebody would have taken those instances and actually paid little more attention to them.
You know what you were saying, Shawnee, about like feedback from teachers being vague? I so relate to that. Uh, they always told my parents, and this is something my parents also said, that "ओ खूब अन्य मनुष्य हो जाए," which is Bangla for इसका ध्यान हमेशा भटक जाता है इधर-उधर. लेकिन nobody was telling me कि मैं क्या करूँ to like not let my ध्यान भटको. Um, yeah, like that was vague, and like I would try to focus on one thing, and then I would focus on, I don't know, the bird outside my window and everything else going on in life. And that was really vague advice. And now I understand that maybe I wasn't feeling motivated, there maybe wasn't enough dopamine in my brain, but then nobody sort of understood that. And also with this, oh ha, like she has a lot of potential, like nobody would ever say like what potential are you seeing in me, like
Mm,
in what area do you see me doing well? That
mm,
was really difficult. And I mentioned like I was really good at languages, right?
mm,
So when I was in 11th grade, I realized that okay, ये maths physics नहीं हो रहा है, engineering नहीं होगी. So I decided, okay, why don't I pursue like a career in journalism? And it had occurred to me then, and I had mentioned this to my English teacher, and she was like, "Oh, you write really well, but I don't think you're outgoing enough to be able to become a good journalist." And she was a great English teacher, and I respect her, but I don't know. I don't think like a lot of neurotypical educators really understand what is going on in our minds. And I don't think it's their fault. It's society at large and like how they have been trained to train us and how that ends up disadvantaging like a lot of neurodivergent.
That's so true. I just think that teachers don't, at least back then, at least in school, they just did not know anything, which made it impossible for them pretty much to give any solid advice. For instance, like, you say journalism. Sometimes, we would not do journalistic exercises in class, but we would do extempore, or we would, somebody would have to give a presentation. And I tend to flap my hands a lot. In fact, like, right now also, I just want to shake my hands and, flap them all over in order to, now that I'm chatting with you. And every time a teacher saw this, they would call me out for my poor self control, because they would tell me that, you are not paying attention, which is why you are doing this. Whereas today I know that this is my stim and I only do it to regulate myself. But the fact that my teachers had no idea about autism or how to help a student who presents differently in certain ways, it was all, all the time, if I was called to speak on something, that anxiety that now I have to do something so that I don't flap my hands kind of overtook everything else. And I think that also made me so much more fearful and, very socially anxious as a person. Like, I know what to say, but I'm very confused that while I present that information, maybe I'll move my hands, maybe I'll give into those, those things that I just want to do, and the other person will think that I'm just not professional enough. So that really, like, I really wish that they had better information about us neurodivergent kids.
Yeah, and especially this advice about like don't move your hands that much. Like I remember as a child, like I was always told that, oh, you're moving your hands too much. And for the longest time, like I was really, really scared of public speaking. Now, of course, over time I have been able to slowly get into that, but
Mm.
it was difficult. And as a child, of course, I didn't know what stimming was. I was, of course, doing it. It was mostly like tearing my skin. Um, but the the earliest and sort of clearest memory I have of early school days is my parents dropping me at school and me just bursting into tears and not letting my mother go. It was like I was having full blown meltdowns almost every day because I knew that in a school ka atmosphere, like I can't sit in my weird ways. And like as autistic folks, we struggle with proprioception. So we need like our own postures, proprioception. So, proprioception is scientifically defined as the body's internal awareness of its movements and position in space. But to explain it to you in more simpler terms, autistic brains का थोड़ा sensory receptors का लफड़ा होता है. So, a lot of times we don't understand what is there around us and we end up bumping into things a lot more often. Like that's where the clumsiness comes from. But that's the more common one. The more uncommon one is how we might constantly need to sit with our limbs sort of all together because that's the only way we feel safe. Because otherwise, it's like pata nahi hai aaspas kya hai. Like my perception of the space I am in is very different from a neurotypical person's perception of the space they are in. And I was actually just recalling a colleague who used to call me uh, Loknath Baba for the way I used to sit in my first job. So, yeah, neurodivergence. You probably have heard this word on the internet a lot. Um, but I don't know if I can explain neurodivergence to you without telling you what neurodiversity is. तो हम सबके अंदर नर्वस सिस्टम होता है और सबका नर्वस सिस्टम एक तरह से तो चलता नहीं है. And that is the diversity that exists in all of our neurotypes and hence neurodiversity. Now, neurodivergence comes in because एक तरह के नर्वस सिस्टम या एक तरह के दिमाग को हम न्यूरोटिपिकल मानते हैं. What is not neurotypical is neurodivergent. And neurodivergence is a vast umbrella that actually includes autism, ADHD, OCD, borderline personality disorder, CPTSD. I probably don't even remember all of the names, but there are a lot more. So that is what neurodivergence is. Our brains are a little bit different from your neurotypical brains. We need to be able to stim and like just constantly being around people and like having that gaze on us would make that really difficult. And I just used to have meltdowns every morning. And at one point I remember in LKG, my teacher said, oh, maybe you're crying so much because you don't have friends, which was true. I did not have friends. I was too busy melting down. And then like it's a little embarrassing now, but she asked people in class if anybody would like to be my friend, and then one girl raised her hand, and it was very sweet of her. I'm very thankful to her, but it didn't really solve my melting down problem. But hey, that's a memory that exists now.
I know. I think this just goes on to show that how school was for us. Not only did we, of course, did know that we were autistic,
Yeah.
and people around us saw a lot of things, but were forcing us to just behave in ways that they thought was the way to be. So just just goes on to show that how important it is to get that support and recognition right when you are in school, because those
Yeah.
are some of our formative years. And yeah, like you mentioned in the beginning, that if it was possible to do redo school, maybe. But still, it feels good to be able to connect the dots now, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.